Welcome to People Love Process. We have a little different thing I'm going to do this time around, and mainly it's because I'm pretty busy right now, and over the next 2 weeks, I have to get a bunch of stuff done, or at least I want to get a bunch of stuff done ahead of schedule for basically this year. I have two courses. Micro courses I'm creating for LinkedIn Learning, and some of the artwork that I want to use on one of them is what I'm going to create here, because that way I can kill two creative birds with one stone of sorts. So I'll explain that a little more after we get done building the artwork. This is where my creative process always starts. A lot of people have asked me, by the way, this is unscripted, and I forgot to turn off my cell phone, so I'm going to make sure that I have my do not disturb function turned on. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. People have asked me when I've drawn, do you draw in a sketchbook? You know, years ago I tried to do that, and I get hung up on it. I don't like the confining aspects of a sketchbook. I'm really jealous of those artists who can fill tomes of sketchbooks. It's just awesome. I love looking at those, but for me, I don't like doing that. What I do is I have branded notepads that I get printed up. Here's an example you can see right here. And this is where this creative process for me started on this project and a lot of other projects. And I love drawing on notepads because if I don't like something, I just rip it off and throw it away. It's no big deal. I don't rip something out of a bound book. That kind of disturbed me because I tried to do that in the past. So I prefer drawing on notepads because I can rip it out and put it in a project folder if I'm trying to work out ideas. So here I'm trying to create some simplified graphic illustrations. None of these are going to be full color. They're going to be flat based. There's a book I published in 2014. I did it with my daughter, and I hired 3 other artists to take the sketches that I created and build out the artwork. One of my friends, Sean, was one of the artists that another fellow designer friend of mine who built some of the art for that book. And Graham, who's my daughter Savannah's husband, he built some of the artwork, and Savannah and me. And we created about, I want to say, 1,300 pieces of art for this book. It's a stock illustration book. And it grants a license to whoever buys the book. You can produce a certain limited quality if you wanted to do a t-shirt line or this and that. If you're interested about that, I'm going to include all the information for that book. You could buy it digitally, and then you could have an entire library of art that you could use for whatever, anything and everything. That's part of the title of the book. The book's called Take and Make Art. And I'll include information in that in the exercise files so you can check it out and see if that's something you're interested in. But once again, this is where the process starts. Just a lot of rough drawing here. I started by drawing the dragon. And then as I was looking at it later, you can see I went back and I redrew this curve. I just thought it swooped down too far. I wanted his head to go up. So those are the things I take note of. Drew out like this little goblin type guy with bat wings, and I'm calling this one a screecher, an owl. Redrew the owl again. Then I thought, hey, I could put a moon above him. That's kind of cool, like a night owl. And then I was exploring doing a phoenix, but I didn't like where that was going, so I didn't use that. So this is where it starts. This is where it starts with drawing, and then I refine those ideas, and this is the refined drawings using the screech, the owl, the dragon, drew a pterodactyl and this goblin kind of creature. The common denominator between all of these is they're flying creatures. That's kind of the theme I'm working with, and it'll make more sense after we're done building. I'll go back and explain stuff. So I'm just going to select these. I just scanned all these in, and I'm going to build them to size. So we're going to go to transparency. I'm just going to knock these down to about 15% like that. We're going to start with the owl, so I'll zoom in on that. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit because I'm going to pull out a guide here that's going to there and drop it because it's symmetric, this one. The other ones aren't. This one's kind of symmetric, but I'm not going to build it this way, the same way I do the owl, because I want it to be quirky. I don't want it a perfect symmetry. And even on this one, even though it's going to be kind of perfect symmetry, that's okay. So I'll lock this layer, and then on a layer on top, let's create a layer here. And by the way, I always go in and I change this to medium blue. I wish I could set that as a default, but you can't. Somebody told me the reason why they have all those colors is map makers use them all the time. Maybe, but still, I should be able to select a color and just tell it always use that color for my layering. So if you ever wondered why are all my layers medium blue, it's because that's the way I prefer it. So all we're going to do is build this artwork, and ultimately the bottom line on this artwork is it'll be black and white to start, and then at another point I'll explore color and how I want to handle it, and that's all going to be based off of what I'm trying to create, and you'll get more information on that. So let's go ahead and go with the circle. I'm going to go with my graphic styles. We'll do 0.5 here. Start off, yeah, it's too thick even with that. So like this. Don't be afraid to zoom in, because if you're too far out, it actually makes the process harder. So I always zoom in, focus on one area, move to a different area. So we have to create a moon here. So I'm going to create a crescent moon like that. And then Pathfinder minus front. Oop, I forgot something I need to do. We're going to make a copy of this one. I can't see my keyboard. It's like I normally have a light shining here, but then it makes the recording image of me look like I don't know, like I'm under a spotlight being interrogated. So I turned it off, and now my keyboard is kind of in shadow. No biggie. I'll make a copy of this circle, Command C, Command F, and I'm just doing that just so I can get a nice, perfect circular art going here. Now, once again, this is going to be symmetric. So this is where I'll go to the Arc tool, part of Subscribe by Astute Graphics. And I love this tool because I don't have to touch Bezier curve handles and mess with any of that. I can just create these arches on the fly, and it just makes the process go way faster. This was an innovative tool by Astute that was hidden for years. Well, they never intended it to be used this way. It's after I discovered it and I started using it this way. But when I started using it this way, it wouldn't close these paths, meaning these would be separate lines. And once I showed Astute what I was doing, they're going, we can make it so it closes the path. And they did. Now, if you don't want it to close a path, you can go in the settings for this tool. I think you just you double click in here, and then you can tell it not to close the path. So that's kind of cool. And they did that like within a few weeks after I was showing them. I had sent them a video of a book cover I was designing, And I was using this method, and they're going, we didn't even think people would use it for something like that. And that's why Astute rocks, is because they actually listen to their users, unlike Adobe having a whole user forum, user voice, and then you post an idea and they say they're going to develop it, and then they phone it in. I'm not bitter. I'm just a little upset. I'd hoped they had done a better job. Okay, again, easiest shapes first. And easy shapes are circles. Easiest of all shapes with the ellipse tool, like that. I go back to this arch tool just to get, I don't want it to be a perfect straight line. I want it to bend a bit. So I'll do something like that. And then I can actually close it with a shape like this. Select this eye, minus front. So this is a stern little owl. He's mad because he missed his opportunity to eat the mouse or what. I don't know. I'm just yapping. Oop. Okay, we'll go here. Again, I try not to do perfect straight lines when I'm creating illustration, because I want to be a little more what am I trying to say? I want to, nothing in, as it said, nothing in nature is perfectly straight. And if it is, it's probably a fair chance that it was created by a human. It's not a natural thing. And I'll just reflect it, select this, and unite it. You can select this. I'll clone it, Command-C, Command-F. If you have the I don't even remember what it's called because I don't use it. The contextual taskbar, which is another kind of annoyance in my opinion. I don't use it. It's just so much faster just to use my own keyboard shortcuts to do things like that. But if you want to make a copy, just select some, go to contextual taskbar, and click on duplicate, and you can do it. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is, this is where I'll focus on pen tool, because I'm going to come to right at this point, go up here. As it goes in this corner, I'll pull out these. We'll go up here at about a 12 o'clock position, pull out those where it comes to point, gets a point. So it swings down here, probably right around here, like that, where it comes to a point, gets a point, gets a point. And then we'll put another one here. So I don't worry about, finessing all the form yet. I just figure out anchor point placement on a shape like this, the wing. But where it comes to a point, those are easy, and this is such a short distance. We'll go right to the point. And on this one, we'll do the curve right about that. And we'll end it here. And just for the sake of it, this might look weird, but I'm going to go here. I'm going to just keep that path open because I can do some of the other with the arc tool. Then what you want to do is, actually, I just realized I don't have some of my tools open. So, nope, not there. What am I looking for? This one. There we go. Normally on my workstation, I have this open. So because there's a lot of tools hidden under other tools, I'm going to go to anchor point tool. And this is where you can select a path. And the anchor point tool, you can bend the path. But what it does is, notice it releases the handle. The only reason I don't use this tool a lot for doing this is because it'll screw up the orientation of these handles now. But that's how you get access to an anchor point handle natively in Illustrator. It's a little wonky. I think it could be a lot better. Let me show you how Astute does it, because I never use it to do that in natively. Astute has a plugin called Pascribe. The plugin's called, what is it? Now I'm putting myself on this. This is what Unscripted is all about. Astute, it's their Vector Scribe is the name of the plugin, and their specific tool is called Pascribe. This tool was doing what I just showed you natively in Illustrator about 6 to 7 years before Illustrator ripped it off and did a half-assed job instead of making it intuitive. Notice when I select Pascribe, it's smart enough to put these white nodes. What are those? Those are ghost handles. So I can just grab this and pull it out. So that, and it doesn't affect any other anchor or handles. It's just very intuitive, very smart, lightning fast. Notice the nodes here. But you can grab a path like this, and I can pull this down like that. And then I can pull this node for this one, to work out the angle here. And if you break it, notice this one's broken. It's now acting like a corner handle. That's not because Astute's plugin breaks it. It's because the native under the hood code of Illustrator breaks it. So Astute made a fix. If I drag this up until you see S, now it's smooth again. When you let go, now it'll act like a smooth anchor. There's only 2 types of anchors in Illustrator, smooth and corner. And that's how you fix it easily with this plugin. That's another benefit of using it. So let's go ahead and finesse this a little bit more. Pull that out. We want to get access to this handle. We'll pull that out. Go ahead and adjust this one. We'll adjust this one. Most of the time when I'm doing this kind of building, I'm either binge watching some show on a streaming network or listening to my favorite audiobook. I just discovered a new author that I'd never heard about. Just popped up one day on Audible, so I said, hey, I'll give it a try. And it turns out all of his stories are set in the state that I grew up in, which is Washington State. And it's kind of cool. So he's using all these locations I've been to, and I'm going, wow, I kind of like that. Another author, J.A. Jance, does the same thing. Her character's based out of Seattle. So I liked her books for the same reason. Okay, I'm going to go here. And the reason why I'm not offsetting the head shape is just because I don't want that absolute geometric precision. I want it to be somewhat precise, but still not be absolutely perfect. So that's why I'm putting little curves in all of these, and that's why I didn't want to. There we go. So we have the wing done. So we have the head, the wing, and we'll just do his torso. And go here. Oops. Let's grab the arch tool. That's what I should have done. And we create the arch. Go like this. Go to where it comes to a point, gets a point. Most of these I think I can create with the arch tool on the tail feathers. Owls are so cool. I was watching a video the other day, and there was it's like an animal rescue kind of company's not the name, organization. And I forget how the owl got injured, but they took it in and restored it. And so the guy's talking, this owl's just sitting right next to him. They're just so cool and majestic looking. They're like awesome. Like, I'd love to have a pet owl. I don't think my wife would go for it, but They are cool. Owls are one of my favorite type of animals. Okay, now we're going to try to do his talons as fast as we can. We'll use the arch tool again. So you can see my drawing wasn't even that perfect, so that's okay. We can improve it when we go to build it. I just thought of an idea. I'm not going to finish that. I'm going to go further beyond that, like this. And then I'm going to show you a different tool in Vector Scribe called the Extend Path tool. I wish I would have made this one longer. Well, the Extend Path tool just does what its name implies, extends the path. So I can grab this and just move it, and it follows that geometry. It's such a simple tool, and you don't use it every day, but when you have need for it, you don't have to rebuild stuff. Okay, then we'll go back to the arc tool, and I'll finish his legs. Again, I want these perfectly straight. We'll put a little curve on it. Like that. Then I'll close this shape. So why did I do that? Because I think it'd be easier just to get what I want using ellipse, rotating it. That might be good right there. Sometimes I pull it away and then bring it back in. A little bigger, like that. Yeah, that looks fine. We're almost done here. We'll just do the feathers. By the way, the book I did, Take or Make Art, we did 1,200 pieces of art, like literally within. And this is in between doing regular client work and stuff. We did it over a summer. So we're talking like 3 months. And the deadline was September. We started like in June. It was a little nuts. That's why I got friends, creative friends involved in it, because, each of us only had so much time every day. Okay. Make a clone, bring those up. By the way, these, just so you can see what I'm doing, if we go ahead, I think that'll work. Take this one, clone it. Like that. We'll color that the same. Now, all I'm going to do is take the ones that aren't reflected, these, copy them, go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point. And by the way, a central anchor point, you want to have smart guides turned on, Command U. So when you're over an anchor, it shows you. When you're over a path, it shows you. And then that way, when you reflect it, it'll mirror exactly. Okay. I'm going to take these two, I'm going to fuse them together. I'm going to take these two and fuse them together. We'll take this on top, this on the bottom, select both, go minus front. So it creates the nice little feathers. We'll take these three and we'll go unite. We'll take these three on top. We'll unite. So with that on top, I select these and I get the feathers. That's the easiest way to create feathers like this, in my opinion, is just using elliptical shapes. We can go ahead and minus front that out like that. And we don't need that anymore. I'm going to take everything that's not reflected, the head, the eyes, the beak is, so I won't select that. We'll take the torso. I'm going to clone these, Command-C, Command-F, go to the Reflect tool, find a central anchor point, reflect it over, like that. We have all of our artwork here. And it's always at this point that I select this. I'll make a copy of it. I'll group it, and then I'll just put a copy in my X layer so I can always go back to it if I need to. Once we reflect it, we can select all these areas that are reflected, the torso, the wings, the feet, the head shapes, and go ahead and unite them. If you go to Appearance, it's going to default to Group. That's normal. I wish you could set it as a preference to always make a compound path. I don't know why you can't. Talked them into it one time in one version, and then all the Adobe certified users, people are awesome at using Illustrator because they know every single tool and feature, but don't really create anything awesome, which I find a little weird. But they complained, and then they switched it back, and people are still confused about it all these years later because it's not very intuitive. And it's inconsistent from one tool to the next. Shape building tool retains compounds. Pathfinder doesn't. Why? It's the same thing. It's just different methods. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. I have no idea. Then again, they don't use the software, so they don't care. They don't think about it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and punch these. Oops. One of these aren't. Okay, that's a compound, and that's a compound. Make sure it's on front. Bring to front. Select this. Minus. Then I can select the eyes and the moon. Unite all those, turn it into a compound path, and we're going to go to black, no outline, and if I turn off my sketch, that's what we end up with. Now, on some of these, I'll probably eventually go in once I get the core art done like this for each one and just finesse so they're not these dagger sharp points like on the moon, and put really subtle rounds on them. I'm not going to bother to do that. I just wanted to show you the fundamental process. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the lion. We'll see how long that takes. And if that doesn't take too long, we might build another one. Now, if I spent all the time building all of these in one movie, it'd just be kind of boring. So I don't want to do that. But we'll do one like the lion, like the dragon, because this is distinctly asymmetrical. There's nothing symmetric about this that we can capitalize on like we did the owl. It's just building vector art, and I usually start with the head here, and I'll go ahead and I start with the head. I'll go ahead and we're going to take the arch tool, and I'm going to, there's so many, anytime it goes from a point to 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 a point. The whole head is one point to the next point. So it's a great candidate for using this tool because I can just go dink, dink here, get that curve, continue here, put a subtle curve right there on his brow, here on his snout, down to the horn coming out of his end of his mouth or snout, whatever, and down into his jaw, start forming the first tooth, goes up here, put these curves in it, go down, create the next one, go to the next one, create that, add subtle little curves. You don't want anything straight. Go here. I mean, I'm not lying. If I had to pick one plugin by Astute, and that was the only plugin I used, it would be Vector Scribe, because between this tool and the Path Scribe tool and the dynamic corners tool, all of which Adobe's ripped off and implemented it in less intuitive and sometimes gets in the way, such as the corner widget. It's too easy to round stuff when you're not trying to. It forces you to zoom in. I tried to explain that to him. I actually consulted on the rounding tool. If I repeat a story, pardon me, because I get that trait from my mom. She does it all the time, and looks like I got that gene where I tell the same story more than once. So Adobe said, hey, we want to show you what we're doing with rounding in Illustrator. Can we set up a call? So that's usually how it happens. And I stay up until 1 in the morning because their morning is the middle of my night, since they're in New Delhi, India. And that's what I did that night. And I get on, and they proceed to show me how the corner widget is going to work. And they have a star shape. And they select a corner. No. That's right. It was a square. And they select a corner and they're rounding it. I'm going, okay, that's kind of cool. And then after a few minutes of them talking about it and showing it, I was like, well, those are all 90-degree corners. I'm going, and so I'm thinking, so I ask him, I go, so can you show me on something that's a non-90-degree corner, like maybe take a star shape and, and they're side by side on screen. They're like, they look at each other kind of like this. And I'm like going, why is that a problem? Is what I'm thinking. Well, they end up telling me, well, we have not added that feature in yet. And I go, but you're going to add that in before you release this, right? And they weren't. They were going to release it like that. And I'm like, I go, guys, let me ask you a question. Let's say you announce, hey, we have rounding in Illustrator now. How long is it going to take before somebody discovers it won't work on a non-90-degree angle? Maybe 30 seconds? And then everybody is going to go, what the hell? What are they thinking? I go, you'll get so much blowback. You don't want to do that. And so they actually listened to me, and they didn't release it that way, but they were going to. But it took them 3 months to add it to non-90-degree angles. So, I was just going, that just seems pretty obvious. You wouldn't want to do that, but oh well. But then other features like the new swatch info ripoff of whoever the guy was that created the render swatch legend script for Adobe Illustrator that Adobe just ripped off and tried to sell it as, hey, Vaughn, this is an answer to your drag and drop swatches to the desktop. I'm like, no, it isn't. Not only that, it's not even, there's so many other people have commented on that already on user voice. I already made my beef known. There's something else coming up. I've been invited to be part of a conversation with them on another issue I've been bitching at literally 13 years. It's a bug that's been in Illustrator. And, they make it sound like we really want your input. Yeah, I've been giving it to you 13 years. That doesn't really change anything. So not completely buying you're serious about it now, but oops, my palettes here are underneath my, there we go, that's better. I just want to do smart remove here. By the way, that's another crappy way they implemented that in Illustrator. I'll just show you in Illustrator. If you select this with the direct selection tool, now, see, I never use it. Now, let me think. This is the other thing. You have to remember this because it's not as simple as just selecting and clicking something. Oh, no, it can't be that simple with Adobe. Well, I'll show you in Astute. I can just select this, go Smart Remove, done. Doesn't destroy the artwork. Nope, in Illustrator, you have to select it. Then you have to hit... Crap. I don't even... I apologize. I don't even remember. And that's why I never use it. It's so much easier to just go bump. Once again, the way they implemented it is just overly complicated, and bottom line, doesn't work as well. And I showed that in a movie that I published, I believe it was last June or July on People Love, where I have my hippo art, and I'm showing you Smart Remove from Astute and Smart Remove from Illustrator. And Illustrator's fails at times, and it'll still distort your art, and it won't remove it in a clean fashion, which is kind of nuts. Okay. By the way, you can use this anchor point tool. By the way, it wasn't always called that. It was called something else. And then when they added this functionality to it, they changed it to arch a line like that. So you don't have to have a curve or a anchor in the middle of this, So we'll go here. But if you just focus on where it comes to a point, and we'll just put our anchors there, then you can come back to a feature like... I always get lost here because they've added this, and it bumps off my icons now. So is that the tool? Oh, no, that's dynamic corners. There it is, Passcribe. It usually on my other machine, my muscle memory is getting the best of me. These are in a different location because I still work on 2024 on my workstation. You can see this is 2025. I try to record everything on the latest. But I like Passcribe because I can do the same thing with Passcribe, and it's easier to build curves like this by just using this feature, and you don't really have to touch, the Bezier handles, which is kind of nice. Let's go ahead and finish off. Is this the arch? Yep. By the way, these shapes on a path feature, I like that the only example I've ever seen Adobe show of using that is like planets around a spaceship or whatever. It's like, well, I'd like to see other ways you think people, or other designers could use it for, and I've yet to see anything that compels me. It's kind of like a gimmick feature, in my opinion. Okay, enough Adobe ranting. So that looks pretty good for the horn. Now, when it comes to this, we'll try the arc tool still. And go like this. Pull it out a little bit. Go down here. Like that. This is such a subtle curve. It's easier to do that. And then we'll close this shape like this. Again, I can take this Smart Remove. Then I can take this. And I would just adjust these Bezier handles to get that arc the way I want, like that. And then we got that one. Like, here's a good example. I might come back on this later and just maybe round it a little bit there rather than coming to a point, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Let's go ahead. All of these spines on the dragon's back, this is an ideal point in this visual that I can create with the Arc plugin or Arc tool. Part of Subscribe plugin by Astute Graphics. By the way, you can try any of their plugins for free for 7 days. Just maybe you have a project coming up and you know you might be able to utilize this. That'd be a good way to test it. And then if you like it, you can subscribe. Now, the subscription fee for a year, you might want to double check this. I think it's like $130, but just think of it this way. You can write it off. And let's say after using a bunch of different plugins for a year, you don't think you use them that much. Well, you can cancel your subscription and those plugins will still be available to you to use in that version of Illustrator. Now, if a new version of Illustrator comes out, let's say 2-3 versions down the road, they might stop working. So it's not like you're locked in. You can back out and decide not to do the subscription, but at that point you wouldn't get the updates anymore or access to the new features, but you could still use the plugins you had been using. So that's not always the case. That's actually, I kind of like that they made it that way. And here's the other thing. The amount of time it saves me is way more than $130 worth of my time in a given year. So in that respect, in my opinion, it's like an absolute no-brainer. Okay, we're going to build this fork tail. Okay. I think that looks a little more elegant than what my drawing was. It's always a good thing. And then this, I want it to be curved, kind of. And you have to make that sound when you're doing stuff like this. I had somebody not too long ago ask me, why do you use this magenta line when you're building? You know, it's just something I got in the habit of doing. I didn't want to focus on fill colors, and I wanted to be able to see my sketch really clear. And by the way, I'm at a 5-point line, so at times I'll even go down to like a hairline just so I can see my drawing underneath it a lot easier. And on this one, let's see, I need to pay attention here. I think I'm going to do... Then where it comes to a point, gets a point, and then we can curve this. And then this one will make that arc. I think that looks good. This one's all wonky. We have to fix this. So I just started using the magenta lines years ago because I'm focusing on shape and form, especially in this style, because this will just either remain black or it'll be a different solid color than black. And I think this makes more sense since it's going at a curve, having these at a curve. So I pay attention to that. So sometimes I'll pull it away, then pull it back just to position it. I think that looks good. Okay, we will go ahead and build a dragon foot. I've always been curious, how many anchor points have I used over the years and everything I've created? It would be really interesting to know that number. It's easily millions. Like this path here is just 72 points so far. But especially when I've done certain styles like vector painting, where I create very realistic art brushes that have like 20,000 anchor points in one brush. Yeah, it adds up quite a bit. Okay, this is a good example where I'll go in and tweak that. This might be like a subtle S, like barely an S. This one might even look better pulling it out more. Nope, that kind of messed it up. Let's something like that. I think that's fine. Okay, we will. Now I could put it right here and just make that the curve. We'll try that. And then where it comes to a point, gets a point, then we'll go here. I'm going to make the arms separate shapes because it's easier just creating this curve with one path rather than breaking it here and then going into the arm. You don't need to do that. So we'll close it. So now we have all the shapes closed. I'll go to the Pathfinder, distort this one, finesse the Bezier to get this little notch in here. And then I'll deselect it just to look at it and see if I want to improve it. This needs to project out more to create the demon thigh or leg. Might zoom in a little bit. This probably come in. Then I'll finesse this. Notice how I'm tilting my head? Yeah, I do that. You can rotate the artboard in Illustrator, but again, it's not. It's more trouble than it's worth. Let's just put it that way. So I never do that. I just turn my head. Okay, let's go ahead and finesse this curve. Pull that out. We'll fix this. So I just want to get this swoop of the neck. That's really important for this one. Like that. We're kind of zoomed in. We can zoom out. I think that looks fine. Not completely sure if I think what I want to do so the horn on his head, I think I want this to be like a gap here, so it implies that this one's further back, I think. We'll create his eye here. Okay. There we go. let's do his legs, then we can do the flame. And that might be all we'll do in this movie. Here. Again, we're using the arc tool. That looks better. Okay, this will fuse, but this one I think will kind of be on the opposite side of the dragons, so we'll have a gap here eventually, but I'll build it as if we don't. Because I'm still not sure what that gap's going to be, because I want it to go with all the other art I work on. So, but we'll experiment. I'll save the art, because normally what I do is I build all the art out so I have the base shapes, and then I would focus on doing that kind of detailing, and that way I can figure out a commonality of a tolerance that looks good throughout all of them, so they kind of work together. Something like that. Actually, I think I need to pull that down a bit. No, I need to adjust this. Okay. His finger's looking a little meager. And then we'll unite it. Now the other one's looking thin, so I obsess over this stuff. I'm like, I don't like ever leaving something and thinking, it's good enough. It's like, well, just fix it. Just do it. Okay, there we go. We have the body, we have the wings, we have the head and the arms. This dude almost has T-Rex arms. Ooh, just hanging there. I can burn you, though. Okay. I think definitely want it to start in there and then have it come into this. Just this curve just to get that looking good. That looks good. Do this one. That looks good. Then I'll go to the arc tool. I think we can get at least half of that one up there. And we'll do this one. Then this one, go out, come down. We'll do that. Goes to a point. Then we can grab a ghost handle, pull out that handle, pull this out. Like that. This is This one right here is a bit tricky. Shouldn't be that hard. But I think if we go here right into like a 3 o'clock position, 12 o'clock, back down to a 6, and then to a point. So that's kind of over the years my methodology for figuring out where you put the anchor point locations. You'll never get it perfect, so you can always go back. And in this case, we're going to pull this handle, fix this so it stays smooth like that. I think this needs to be over more. This needs to come up. That still looks wonky, so I think this needs to go over. This one. Okay. I think that looks okay. See, at time, I've seen a lot of people build vector art, and they argue these should always be 90-degree angles to get perfect curves. The thing is, well, let's do this. Let's go Command Z. That's what I had. I don't think that looks as good. Let's go back up here and do redo move. I think that looks better because it's swooping around and then it's starting to go down towards the angle on this one. And I think this looks better. So I don't think that's always the case. It might be the case with typography, which is more distinctly geometric. I might tweak that just a little. Yeah, I think that looks good. So I think the only rule is it just has to look good. Whether or not it's at perfect tangents or whatever, I don't think is always the case. I used to think that way, and the more I built art over the years, the more I realized that's not always the case. So it's a case-by-case basis, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. We'll get this finessed like that. That looks good. And now I can close this path out like this. Go to Path Scribe, adjust the Beziers, grab this ghost handle like that. And now all we have to do is create the wisps of flame that are popping off of this. So this is where I'll just focus on the two endpoints, close it. So this is a closed path. Go up here, click, click, click. That's a closed path. And then if I grab Path Scribe tool, I can get access to the handles, and then I can start finessing it into the exact shape it needs to be. But I think I can get it without having to add any other anchors in it. Like that. So that's fine. We'll go down here again. This is why I love Astute's plugins. This just natively, this is a lot faster than, or simplicity wise, it's a lot faster than messing with the anchor point tool. And again, it's what saves time. So for me, literally, I could build into any given project a $130 fee that covers my subscription for a whole year to Astute Graphics. If I had to, like, let's say I was doing a big project for some company and it required all this illustration, then I could just build it into that, and then I have a subscription for a year. So it's it's not hard to figure out how you can afford it. I hear a lot, well, that's a lot of money. I don't want to pay that. I go, well, is your time worth anything? Because the amount of time it's going to save you will more than cover that. It's like, yeah, you have to look at it that way. If you look at everything as just an expense, and a lot of clients do that when it comes to brand identity, I give them a quote. No, we didn't want to spend that much. I'm going, well, you need to look at this as an investment into what you do. So there we go. We have all the base shapes. I'm going to select all of these like that. I'm going to clone it, Command-C, Command-F, group it, and guess what I'm going to do? That's right. I'm going to store him in his little vector cave on the X layer, like that. So in regards to this design, I would take this shape, and I'm just going to do a simple offset just to show you what I would do. Whether or not it's the exact tolerance I'm going to keep, I don't know. I'll go offset. You can see this is doing 10 points. It's way too much. Let's try 2, see what that looks like. 2 is about right. So I'll go ahead and commit to 2, at least to show you this example. If I select this, clone it, Command-C, Command-F, and we'll color it inside fill color this. It's on top of this arm, and I'll trim that arm. Now it creates that gap space there. I might use it again for this one, so I'll take it, clone it, Command-C, Command-F. This time we'll fill it with the blue. Why not? Bring it to the front. Select this back horn and trim it. That way it has a gap in there. And then, oops, I used my copy. Let's make sure to save a copy. Trim it. So on this one, I don't want these cutting into the flame coming out of his mouth. So I'll just pull these back like that. Select this, select the flame, and go minus front. So it puts a little gap, so it implies it's coming out of his mouth. That's what we want. And then, like I did with the owl, I can select all these shapes like this, even the little horn. These, I'll leave the eyes and the details and the wings alone at this point. I'll go unite. Then we'll fill it with black. We'll push it to the back so we can select the eye, the inside detail. We'll unite that, making sure it's a compound. If I select this, it's a compound, so I can select both of these and go minus front. And that knocks that detail. Notice it's always going to revert back to a group. So this is why I have a keyboard shortcut at F7. Otherwise, if I didn't have keyboard shortcut, it's not a one-button push. You have to go Object, you have to go all the way down to Compound, then you have to go over. Notice I have F7. I never do that. And if you haven't yet set up keyboard shortcuts, it's not like you have to figure out every absolute shortcut you could possibly use. Just pick the obvious ones that you do so often that are in the pull-down menus, like Compound Path. And I can just select my art. If you watch the appearance panel here and I just hit F7, boom, Compound Path. Just makes life a whole lot easier. So that's how I'm creating the art. And by the way, the Take or Make book I mentioned earlier, this is what all the artwork looks like in it. And again, much like what I said about the owl, I would go in on these and put very subtle rounds so not everything comes to a dagger sharp point. It just makes it look a little more handcrafted. But this is how I build out each of these little characters here. And this is what I want you to do. If you download this exercise file, try building out one of these. And like, let's say you're going to build out Screech here, this bird character. Maybe you want to put different wings on him, or maybe he has antenna. These can be crazy monster kind of flying things. That's kind of what, although a pterodactyl is a monster, but neither is an owl, but I just like flying creatures was my theme. So why am I creating this? Well, the whole reason I'm doing this is I've been doing micro courses for LinkedIn Learning. I have full-blown courses like logo design courses and pattern design courses, and one that focuses on Illustrator. It's my flagship course called Drawing Vector Graphics. It talks about how to approach building vector graphics, goes over my clockwork method. So illustration disciplines, full course on that, logo design, patterns, icon design. And what I've been doing is creating micro courses of each of those themes. So last year I did the first one called Logo Design, breaking down the process. Most of my courses have 20 to 25 videos in each, and it could run 4 or 5 hours long if you watch all of them through. The micro courses are distinctly smaller, but it captures the essence and absolute steps you need to know in order to do logo design. In order to do the one I just finished is icon design, and I'll be sharing some of that content later towards the summer on PeopleHub because it has a lot of good content in it. And this one is another one I'm going to be finishing up within the month and getting it off to LinkedIn. And it's pattern design, breaking down the process. Now, in pattern design, there's like easy geometric ways of doing it. But if you want to come up with a really complex repeat, you have to understand how you can capitalize on using what I call a bounding box. So let me show you what I mean. A bounding box is just a shape. A rectangular shape, that is. Every single pattern that you create in Adobe Illustrator essentially is using 90 degrees to tile it. Now, they have tile tool, they have tile modes like, now I can't remember off the top of my head, so let's do this. Let's just to show you an example. Let's, I don't want to get too far off topic here, but let's say we take this, we color it blue, and then we want to tile this. So I'm just going to drag it and drop it into, oops. There we go. I'm going to drag and drop it right into the swatches palette. What does this create? A color swatch? No, this is called a pattern swatch. You double click into it. All of a sudden, it's going to default to the tile type of grid here. And if we go here and we click on the tile tool, we can add a spacing in between all those, and you can get a really quick halftone pattern like this. And we're kind of in isolation mode like this. So if you want to get back, you can just hit the escape key and it'll bring you back to the artboard. We now have our pattern here. So let's say you select the rectangle tool, you have the pattern selected here, and we can go ahead, make sure you're on a layer, and you can draw out a pattern. Now, this is a savable asset, meaning I can go to graphic styles with it selected and go add a graphic style. And I always have it now down here in a graphic style. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you draw out a circle like this. Let's just go ahead and fill this with this color. But you decide, I want that halftone. You just click the graphic style and boom. The repeat grid feature where you can mock up a pattern, another half-baked feature by Adobe. Doesn't create an asset, doesn't create a pattern swatch. You can't save it as a graphic style. It just visually looks like a pattern, but it really isn't a working pattern. You don't want to do that. So the micro course that I'm creating is going to be focused on patterns. And so it all starts with a bounding box. And so if I take the drawings that I did of my characters, I literally just scan them in as separate TIFF images, and then I start composing them. So if the bounding box is the tile shape, wherever this goes off on the top will come in on the bottom. Where the pterodactyl goes off on the left will come in on the right. Same with screech and owl, so on, etc. So what does that mean? That means the repeat on those shapes are going to look like this. That's how they come in on the opposing sides, whether it's top, bottom, left, or right. The owl kind of overlaps all of those quadrants. So you'll see it showing here. And then the easy way to do this, to create a really tight kind of mix of elements, is you have to plan it out. And so this is where I got it to. And then I just filled the gaps with more flying creatures. And again, those tile. So this is going to turn into a pattern design, a complex pattern design. And there's no quick way of doing this in Illustrator. It's not hard though. You just have to plan it. And I'm going to be walking through that. I'm going to be showing object-oriented patterns, which are super easy to create. Aren't as complex on this. I'm going to be showing dimensional stuff, and I'll be sharing a lot of that content later this summer, probably towards September on that one later this year. So that's what this was for. I hope you like this impromptu episode of over-the-shoulder vector building. It's a little different, so I just challenge you once again. Download the exercise file. It's going to include the information on the Take and Make art book. I'll also include some free stock art in there as well. And try building out one of these characters, but modify it. Do something different. Maybe on this goblin guy down here, maybe he has a tail, or maybe the goblin just has one eye, not two. Or you can make this bird. Maybe it's kind of like those heraldry kind of birds with two heads. Maybe this dude has two heads. Now that I think about that, that would have been cool. I should have done two heads. I didn't even think about that until now. So do something. Try it, experiment, create on your own, and I think you'll be surprised at what you're going to create. So thank you for watching People of Process. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll get back to our normal kind of content that's more refined next week. I have something really cool that is already created, and I'll be sharing that with you. I just wanted to focus on getting a head start on doing this course and creating this content, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you for watching People of Process. I hope something I showed you within this movie helps you to improve your own creative process.